2015 to order. We'll call on Susan Mabry for roll call.
Chairman Marty Smith,
Here.
Vice Chairman Trent North,
Here.
Commissioner Vicki Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Tommy Lee,
Here.
Commissioner Michelle Morgan,
Here.
Commissioner Kevin Jackson,
Here.
Commissioner George Chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go to we're going to call on Commissioner Trent North to present an invocation, followed by Commissioner Jackson with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me as we go to the throne. Most precious and all-wise Father, we come at this time just to give you the honor, praise, and glory. We thank you for the blessings that you bestow upon us. We thank you for the men and women who continue to fight for democracy abroad as well as at home. We thank you for your servants who are up here, standing in, being disciples for you. These prayers we ask in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Next item on the agenda, I'll make the motion to approve of tonight's agenda as printed.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the work session, September 11-12, work session minutes of October 1st, and commission meeting minutes of October 6th. Look for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the public comments. There was a page in the back to sign up. That's a time for anybody, citizens, to be able to approach the board for comments. We will not act or comment on those public comment section, but we'll try to, typically it needs research, and we'll appoint somebody to you if you need. Was anybody on the sign-up sheet? Thank you very much. We'll go on to the next item on the agenda and go into the financial session. We're going to call on Controller Don Johnson to give us a financial recap for September and October.
And I will do September 1st, so it'll be the very back one. Yes, Chairman and Board of Commissioners, at the end of September 2015 financial recap, our total revenues were $3,809,517, which represents 7.7% of our total revenue, plus our internal fund transfers were $260,156. Our total expenditures, $11,131,119, which represents 22.4% of the total budget. And our internal fund expenses were $404,211. On our health insurance budget, our budget was $1,937,755. We have spent $2,140,326, which were $202,571 over budget. Again, this is just what we spend. We have the whole total amount budgeted for the year. So we've spent more than what our annual monthly budget. And at the end of September, our cash reserves were $1,940,440.
Any questions for Don?
I'll go to October 2015 financial recap. Our total revenues, $10,830,448, which represents 21.8% of our total budget. Our internal fund transfers, $404,505. Total expenditures, $14,890,874, which represents 29.9% of our total appropriations. And then our health insurance budget was $2,566,451. We have expended $2,896,771, again leaving a shortage of $330,320. Our total cash reserves at the end of October were $5,111,114.
Chairman, can I ask?
Absolutely.
So on our health care cost here, we are budgeting the maximum amount to cover, and we're still losing?
We have a maximum budgeted, but we have to budget each month the portion that we've budgeted. In other words, if we have two pay periods, we divide out during the year, every month, how much we're gonna take of that budget out.
But though,
But the expenses
yes,
are different. Again, we can't go over our maximum allowable claims. Now, claims may be higher right now, but we will never go over that budgeted amount.
but what Vicki said is actually true though.
Yes.
And that is, right now, based upon where we are in the fiscal year, we're 300,000 in the red. If that continues, because last month it was 200,000. Now we're 300,000. If something doesn't change, and you can't change because it's not small bills that cause this type of problem. Whenever you're going to 200, 300,000 in the red, that means that there's somebody or there are things that are costing serious amounts of money. So it doesn't look favorable unless something drastically changes.
Again,
I'm with you.
the budget will eventually catch up because I haven't hit 3 pay periods yet. Again, remember, the health insurance budget is based on a 26 pay period.
Right,
So-
I'm with you. Let me ask this side note. Where are we with bidding out for next year?
Bidding out,
The broker?
the RFP I think it's ready right now.
We're looking at possibilities of that.
Yes.
By maybe the end of the year. Having an
Okay.
RFP.
Because the only reason I ask that question is you're almost at a point where you have to wait another year. Because, okay, well, long we aware,
Yeah.
okay,
You've got a couple that's been working on that, and
Okay.
it's just about ready.
okay.
Any other questions for Don? See, now we'll go to item 8.2. We can call on Russ Benedict for natural gas marketer and supplier.
Chairman, Commissioners, our contract for True Natural Gas expires on 31 December, so it's that time of year to renew. We received bids today at 4 o'clock, and you got that sheet in front of you. And as you see on there, that was done by amount of money per term. But I gave you another spreadsheet. I plugged in all the numbers that came in on the quotes today. And interestingly, Mansfield Power and Gas actually comes out the cheapest. I base that on the usage that we had last year, the number of terms we used, the DDCs we used, and our monthly service per account. And I plugged in the numbers that they gave us, and Mansfield Power is gonna save us about $4,000 with True Natural Gas. And we have an opportunity to save about $30,000 this year on natural gas. Of course, everybody sees that every time they go to the gas pump.
This is the same thing, okay.
Well, do we need to make a motion?
Absolutely. That's your recommendation, Mansfield, Russ? We have a recommendation.
I'd
Look for a
like,
motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Mansfield Power and Gas.
Second.
As our natural gas provider for the bid of $77,152.25.
Second.
1 year fixed rate, ma'am. Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? And seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Russ. Next item will be 8.3, the Neva Lumsden Memorial Library. We heard the presentation. We'll call on Ronnie Tewksbury if anybody has any questions. We'll be looking for a recommendation from the board.
I make a motion, we set aside $500,000 contingent upon the state of Georgia contributing $2 million and the city of Carrollton contributing the remainder.
I'll second that vote.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
I want to say that I think that's great, $500,000. And I realize we're the smallest portion of it. I do want to remind the board that not myself, but several others on the board have still got issues with fire departments in our districts.
fair.
That's been lingering around for 4 years now.
Right, but this was included in Commissioner Trent's request for items for splost things.
I understand.
That was in
I understand. I'm just reminding that
Commissioner
we
Morgan.
really need to move on. I'm not saying that libraries aren't a priority.
Motion second. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you very much. Next, we'll call on Tricia Orr and Tim Pageant. We have a recommendation for E911 and EOC to be able to purchase off the state contract.
I make a motion that we allow them to purchase on the state contract without seeing the amount in the bid.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is inmate work detail. We heard that presentation at work session. Call on Warbert Jones. His recommendation is to be able to provide those.
I make a motion that we accept the inmate work detail agreement based on the compensation included in the agreement for both cities.
Second. Motion second. Any further discussion? And seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Warden. Next item on the agenda, we'll move into the business session. We'll call on Tim Pageant. At the work session, we discussed doing an MOU for the wars. If there's any question.
I'm going to make a motion that we accept the memorandum of understanding between the WARS radio system and Harrelson, Heard, and Cada counties.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Tim. Next item on the business session is item 9.2, transfer of hog liver property. We'll call Cynthia Daly, which has been discussed as well. If you got any questions.
Which one was that?
Item 9.2.
9.2.
Make a motion that we transfer the property on, that's Trent's district. Trent, you want to do that?
It used to be my district, per Kevin Jackson,
Oh,
we
it's-
gave it to George Chambers.
That is correct. That's Commissioner Chambers.
You
On
gave
behalf
it
of
away.
Commissioner Chambers, I make a motion that we transfer that property from Carroll County to the Carroll County Development.
On behalf of the fine citizen of the great district, I second that motion.
Now we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Cynthia, we'll call you again for 9.3 to discuss the easement of the Moores Bridge property for the gas pipeline.
I also make a motion to allow an easement to Transcontinental Gas Line Company at the Moores Bridge property that Carroll County
I
owns.
second the good man from the district.
And just for clarification for the record, that's giving the chairman the authority to execute the agreements necessary for that easement.
That's right.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Chairman.
Call you again. Item 9.4 is a declaration for a piece of property.
Chairman and board members, this is the first time most of you have seen one of these except for Commissioner North. This is to give the authority to the chairman and I to file a declaration of taking for one parcel of 501 square feet on East Oak Trail in Temple. That is Timberlake Estate subdivision. The Water Authority attained the Community Development Block Grant to put in those water lines, but there has to be road improvements to do it. All of the right-of-ways have been acquired except for this one piece. Wanted to let you know that today, I did have contact with Mr. Bostwick. He has indicated that he is going to take the deal we have given him. However, I would like to go ahead and get the approval in case that falls through, because that closing is set for December the 11th.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Chairman.
We'll call you on two for items 9.5 and 9.6, abandonment of property. This time I will open the floor for public comments.
And Chairman, just for the record, so for that public hearing, this is for the proposed abandonment of a tract that's located off of Old Harper Road. That is 249 square feet of prior right-of-way.
So the floor has been open for a public hearing. Anyone here for a public hearing? And seeing none, at this time, I'll close the floor for the public hearing. Meeting back in session, we'll go to item 9.6. Cynthia, abandonment of the property.
And Chairman, that is to give me the authority to go through to follow up with the abandonment process and approve that resolution to be signed so that I can complete the abandonment process.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Thank you, Chairman.
All those opposed? Thank you very much, Cynthia. Next item will be 9.7, appointments to the Development Authority. And at large, I'll go ahead and make the recommendation for Tim Warren, that's willing and able to serve.
Second.
That's a recommendation. If y'all want to recommend any other positions there, if not, we'll make a motion. I'll follow. Any other positions at this time?
Do you want to do them as a group, or?
Yeah, we'll do them as a group.
I'm good with that.
So I've made a recommendation of Tim Warren for that.
Okay. District 2, I am looking to appoint Ellen Wynn McBrayer as my representative from District 2. Thank you.
District 4 is going to appoint April Brewer Harris.
Oh, with that said, then I'll make the motion to appoint Tim Warren, Ellen Wynn McBrayer for District 2, and April Brewer Harris, a recommendation from District 4, and tabling Commissioner Jackson's for 6 at this time. Chambers, I'm sorry, at this time.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you very much. Next appointment is the Joint Development Authority. The term of Andrew Lovern, he filled the unexpired
The election.
Board of Elections. I missed one, didn't I?
You just named it.
Yes, I did. I'm on the right page, wrong sheet right here. Yeah, elections and registration, 9-8 for Andrew Lovern. It was fulfilling unexpired term for Catherine Brock, willing and able to serve. Look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Andrew Lovern to the Board of Elections and Registration.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Now, 9-9, appointment to the Joint Development Authority. And this is a Board of Commissioners as a group. Lucy Beck, her term expires December 31st of this year. She is willing and able to serve again.
Make a motion we reappoint her.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Item 910, appointment to the Carroll County Board of Tax Assessors.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table item 910. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? 911, appointment to the Water Authority. It's Districts 2, 3, and 4. You have your
Chairman.
recommendations.
Chairman, District 2 would like to table their appointment to the Carroll County Water Authority.
Chairman, District 3 would like to reappoint Bobby Holcomb to the Water Authority.
Okay, District 4 is going to appoint Mandy Greenwood Smith.
District 1 would like to second all the motions.
You make a motion to approve,
Make a motion to approve.
and I'll second.
I was reading as the motion.
And I will abstain from the vote, being relative of one that's being appointed there by marriage only. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Last item. We have in front of you a resolution for the Board of Commissioners of Carroll County requesting the local legislative delegation to be meeting to introduce local legislation relating to the percent of educational funds being able to be collected. I'll make the motion. We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Now finished with a financial session, we will now go into the zoning session. We're going to call on Ortegas, zoning administrator.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Very briefly, I'll go over the items for consideration. Number one, whether the zoning proposal will permit a use that is suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent and nearby property, whether the zoning proposal will adversely affect the existing use or usability of adjacent or nearby property, whether the property to be affected by the zoning proposal has a reasonable economic use as currently zoned, whether the zoning proposal will result in a use which will or could cause an excessive or burdensome use of existing streets, transportation facilities, utilities, or schools, whether the zoning proposal is in conformity with the policy and intent of the land use plan, and whether there are other existing or changing conditions affecting the use and development of the property which give supporting grounds for either approval or disapproval of the zoning proposal. With that, Mr. Chairman, the first item you have is the Vaughn rezoning request, requesting to rezone from R2 residential to commercial. This request has a recommendation of denial from the Planning Commission by a vote of 4-1. It also has a recommendation of denial from the staff.
Okay, as far as policies and procedures governing the conduct of zoning hearings, the applicant or proponents of the zoning application shall be allowed 10 minutes to present data, evidence, and opinion. Those opposed will be offered the same 10 minutes. At that time, we'll offer both sides 5 minutes apiece for rebuttal. This time, we'll call on the applicant.
Good afternoon. My name's Justin Vaughn. This is my brother Mark Vaughn. We live in Bremen, Georgia, out in Harrelson County. Tonight, we'd like to present our 10-minute discussion in 3 parts. First, we'll describe how and why we see our property best suited for commercial and not residential. Second, we'd like to describe exactly what we want to do with our property. And finally, we'll discuss the financial implications to the Carroll County tax base by examining 3 different scenarios in terms of cash flows. We know we all couldn't load up and go out to this property, so we got some print-offs today of the property, so anybody who wasn't familiar with the area or in a different district could know what we was talking about. This is our piece of property right here that we've got. It borders I-20. And it's also got a four-way stop right here on South Van Werk and Rocky Branch Road. There's no neighbors in this area as far down. This is an old chicken house that's no longer there. As far as we know now, the only house that there is now vacant. There has no one living in it. And other than that, there's no residential property, bordering us or around, being I-20. And let me get my pictures out. And picture number 2, here's a picture of the property's backyard with over 40,000 average daily count per day. We got that information off of Georgia Department of Transportation's website, and it also increases once you cross 61. It jumps to 65,000. This is just 40,000 coming from Temple to Villa Rica, and then it increases as you get closer to Atlanta. We'll pass these around so y'all can look at them a little closer also. And here are pictures of high voltage power poles, more typically found in commercial and industrial areas. These power poles actually run through our property. I guess it's Carroll EMC, it's got power coming out through there. But you don't usually see these in residential areas, mostly in industrial and commercial areas. And here's a picture of the power easement on the property with I-20 in the background, and the four-way stop's actually right here on the side. As you see, there's already an easement with the power company going through with the high voltage power lines going through the property. And one corner of the property has a bridge on it. This is the corner of the property with I-20 in the background and the bridge coming over. I mean, we didn't see it suitable for anybody to build, next to the interstate or next to a bridge also. Pass that around. You can stand up if you want. You got that, baby. And here's another picture of the adjacent corner of the property that it shows the four-way stop in the background. Our property's running down I-20, and this is from the bridge showing the four-way stop and their power poles actually running through the property. That's one reason why we're looking at taking it where it's not residential to zone it commercial, because nobody wants to build or anything like that next to the interstate with a bridge or a four-way stop with that much traffic going through it around. Let's see. And here's a close-up picture of the four-way stop with the traffic count. The traffic count on South Van Wert is over 4,000 a day. And we did the studies on it also. The people cut through Villa Rica that come up to the four-way stop and just passing through, just bypass Villa Rica. I guess that's why there's so many cars at the four-way stop coming in every day. And please note that over 2,800 feet, linear feet of the property is surrounded by roads. Over 2,500 feet is road frontage. Sorry about that. That puts a traffic count of 88% surrounded the property by road frontage, which traffic's actually running. You can show that also. The way we see it, this corner property is too small to be profitable as used as agricultural. It's too overwhelmingly surrounded by roads to be used for residential, but it seems ideal for commercial. It has lots of exposure, relatively easy access to the interstate, access to plenty of electrical, and plenty of road frontage, as you see in the pictures with the power poles and the traffic counts and everything. Leaving this property zone residential basically condemns it to death and forces us to look at rental property or install reconditioned homes so that whoever are desperate for a place to live would rent there, and neither which we want to have any interest of doing. If we was to, it's zoned residential right now. If we was to put 4 houses on, nobody's ever built a house on this property for I guess a reason. It's borders I-20, and you've got roads surrounded all the way around. It's zoned residential right now. Nobody's going to buy a house. We could build spec houses, and try to sell them, but nobody's going to want to live next to the interstate. Nobody's ever built there for that reason. That'll only leave it to force us to do, put in reconditioned houses and rent property. We don't want to do that. We're investors. We want to be as specific as possible about what we're going to do our property if it were to be zoned commercial. Here's exactly what we want to do. We'd like to have our property zoned commercial. We'd like to divide it in half-acre commercial lots. Would like to have Carroll County Board of Commissioners, Planning and Zoning Department, Community Development, and any seriously interested neighbors helping us with the development of covenants and restrictions to put on lots so that we can all be satisfied with what is developed. We already have a detailed list of proposed uses of possible layout scenarios of the half-acre tracts. And this is a layout scenario. Yeah, I got that. And here's a list of we'd be willing to put in covenants and restrictions of what could actually go on the property. That way, whatever the planning and zoning determines what would be suitable for that property, there's a list of what we come up with. We want to sell all of the lots except one. Picture number 8. We want to make sure that each of the buildings construction on the lot is of high quality and very similar in design. We got some pictures of some that's already in District 3 in the county, what our idea is as far as putting commercial buildings on the property.
2 minutes.
We use the same brick, same rock, same type of roofing material and color, etc. These details can be spelled out in the covenants and restrictions. We want to keep the westward lot to ourselves to build our own building to operate our various business and operations and endeavors. To be more specific, we plan to use the money from the sale of each of the lots to construct and develop the lot which we have kept for ourselves. As each lot sells, we have a built-in motivator that will cause us to make sure that the buyers of each lot maintain standards and covenants and restrictions because we want to continue to sell the remaining lots. We know that as we manage the development correctly, we'll be able to increase the sales price of each successive lot. Please know that the commercial lots do not sell right away. Mark has a commercial property in Villa Rica on 78 that's been for sale for 10 years, right there at the corner of Westview Drive. Okay. And we don't mind the wait required to sales of the commercial lots because we know we can always increase the sales price over time as needed to maintain acceptable rate of return. I'm going to show them the pictures. We'd like to present scenarios contrasting different values of each of the prospective tax base. Currently, the taxes on the property are less than $300 a year. We pay $300 a year for this property, and we've had it for 4 or 5 years. If we built rental houses on this property, the taxes would go up, but if we instead develop the property into separate half-acre lots, each with a well-development commercial that averages $3,500 in property tax per year or $31,000 in total revenue, then the net present value to the Carroll County tax base would be $630,000. We'd like to point out that the counties like Carroll County have done a good job balancing the commercial properties and residential properties, able to give the individual property tax payers a break at age 65 from the school tax portion. Unfortunately, like in Harrison County, they have not kept this balance and cannot give the individual property taxpayers this same break. Our hope is that Carroll County will always continue to maintain this balance and not let residential property overwhelm commercial developments to the point that their elder citizens are no longer to continue to get a tax break. And here's a building already in District 3 that, just to give an idea, it's over close to Martin's that was built. We want to do something more along that design like we got like it. As I said a while ago, when the first one sells, it's just going to increase. We want the best built one so we continue to sell the other ones as far as.
Okay, that's time. We'll reset. Anybody here in opposition, if you would, please come and state your name.
Good evening. My name is Jackie Waldrop, and I reside at 919 North Lassiter Circle in Villa Rica, Georgia. But I'm here as the executor of the estate of Mary Helen Bell, who resided at 1509 Rocky Branch Road. The reason that there is no one living there is because my mother is deceased. And that only happened in August of this year. So I do not plan for this house to remain vacant, but in the meantime, I have not spoken with one individual who lives within a 3-mile radius who wants commercial property in there. My parents bought the 30 acres and they wanted it to stay residential. Part of it is agricultural. There is nothing, truly nothing, in that neighborhood because it's where people have lived and continue to live and want to live. And they do not want the commercial to come in. I can appreciate the fact that they want to do something nice with it. The problem is, once you zone it commercial, it's great, but when they've made their money and gone on, what comes in next? You know, it's like you don't know. There is no guarantee. And for people who reside there and have resided there for a long time, it's not something that is palatable to them. I have two sisters. I have spoken with them as they asked me to do. My sisters have no desire to own the property because we will inherit it, to own the property that across from a commercial property. We have no desire to do that. So thank you very much.
My name is Avis Hembry. I live across the street from where this property is to be rezoned. I am a widow, and I feel like that I am being taken advantage of by somebody trying to poke commercial property down my throat. I have lived there 58 years, and I have 50 acres that's joining across from the Bell property. And I just don't think that we need commercial property that close to agriculture property or residential property. There's houses in there. There's a subdivision that is across the expressway. And I just don't feel like that this is the thing that needs to be done at this time. I know if it were zoned commercial, they could make a lot of money on it because anything could go in there if they're saying this is not going to happen. But once it's commercial, it's commercial. I appreciate your concern. I am totally against it, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here in opposition? Yes, sir.
Commissioner Lee. When I left, I bent down to kiss my wife. Oh, I'm sorry, Rick Weller, 1210 South Van Wert, about 500 feet from the property, I guess. I bent down to kiss my wife, and I asked her, any words of wisdom? She said, be brief. And I said, okay. After this dissertation, it's kind of hard to be. Abbas has $1 million property. They say it's not good for residential. I have a $500,000 property, residential, paying taxes. I have concrete, same poles they're saying they can't put a residential piece of property on in front of my house, running down the street. Aggie's got one in front of her house. The Bells have one in front of their house. Now, that's a four-way stop. There's no entrance or exit to I-20 there. You've got to go down to Walmart to get on or off the interstate. From the safety standpoint, I went into last time, figures from the school, there's approximately 300 school buses a day that go down Rocky Branch to the school and exit on 78. There's also 210 student passes, or kids that have cars, which I found it hard to believe, that drive to school every day and go up and down that little four-lane street right in front of them. For them to say that residential property is not good in that area, I just take offense to. That's why I built there in 95, and I bought my land from Aggie. We've been there a long time, and we've been paying taxes a long time, not anticipated taxes, taxes every year on this property. So to devalue her property and to devalue my property in anticipation of a value in the future, you know, is not smart business. And having a real estate license, which I do not use, I checked. And from Midway Baptist Church, where right in front of there's a little building that's for sale now, down to their property, and Commissioner Lee, you know this area, to where you turn to go to the recycling place, there are 59 pieces of commercial property for sale that have been for sale for over 2 years. And yet they tell you that they can give you revenue and we're going to do this. I just take offense to that as being a property owner and holder in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here in opposition? Seeing none, we'll give you 5 minutes for rebuttal. Call on the applicant.
Rezoning this property commercial would bring jobs and increase the tax base versus leaving it residential will increase the the burden on the tax system. You put more kids in the school. Carroll County has got the tax break of 65 and older because they've balanced that out. They don't have to pay taxes. When Harrelson County, living in Harrelson, I'm going to be paying school tax as long as I'm in Harrelson County, no matter how old I get. But these people who are against the rezoning, they don't have I-20 as their backdoor neighbor. They don't have 43,000 cars a day, average daily, traveling back and forth. There's no sound barrier walls. They're actually, I work for the Georgia Department of Transportation. They're in the process of getting the contract up to actually reclaim the right-of-way as far as the trees. They're going to cut them back some. Now, that's probably within the next 5 or 10 years, but it's actually in the works. They're doing that. No one's took the incentive to purchase this property. It's been sitting there vacant for a number of years. No one's wanted to do it because, for one, it's zone residential. Nobody's going to build. If we build a house, like I said, it's going to put a tax burden on the school system because you've got kids. Nobody's going to buy a house, so that's going to force us to. I'm not going to build a new house knowing it's not going to sell. We're investors. We'd put in reconditioned houses and possibly turn it into Section 8. You're forcing people to live there that really don't want to, but they have no other choice. And that's not what we want to do. We want to try to increase our return. We'd wish that they would take the time to consider that residents' neighbors would be there 24/7 and in and out all time of day and night, versus business neighbors who are most likely to be there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. While most people who work themselves will be gone to work, and such that the effect of the rezoning to commercial for most people would simply just see nice buildings sitting there. Like I said, we're willing to put covenants and restrictions that's unchangeable. No matter how many times the property sells, that can never be changed once it's set in there under covenants and restrictions. Like a health care facility or something like it, or an after-school program for kids. There's plenty of opportunity there for commercial business. And that's pretty much, we're trying to help out.
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody on the rebuttal?
Just a couple things I forgot. I said last time. There were 35 total tickets to kids basically issued right there at that four-way stop for either running a stop sign or not yielding right away during the school year. He said 8 to 5. That's exactly when those buses and those kids are on the road every day, 5 days a week. And I just think in the consideration of this, and the last thing is the water line that runs in front of that property wasn't paid for by Carroll County. It was paid for by Aggie, myself, the Baptist Church, and the Bells. Paid Carroll County to have the water line put on in that entire area. So I think it should remain residential as it is. Thank you.
Anyone else for rebuttal, opposition? Seeing none, we'll look for recommendation from the board.
I recommend that we follow our planning and zoning board and deny.
We have a motion, we have a second for denial. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Ortegas?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, the next item we have is a request for conditional use and variance to divide 6.1 acres into 2 tracts. This is for David Davis. Mr. Chairman, this request has a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission.
Thank you. We'll call on the applicant.
How you doing? First time I've ever split a parcel or anything like that. I want to split the 1 acre out of the 6 acres so I can will that to my son and the rest of it to my other children. And there's a house already built on the 1st acre, and the other 4 acres is just a mobile home, but later on build a house for the children.
Anyone else here in favor of this, Mr. Davis? Just you? Okay. At this time, we'll stop and ask, is there anyone in opposition of this CUP? Anyone in opposition? And seeing none, look for a recommendation from the board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Mr. Davis. Ortegas,
Yes,
item
sir.
10.3.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, the next item we have is a rezoning request from James and Mary Lou Robinson at 330 High Point Road, Waco. This request is requesting to rezone from commercial to agriculture. Mr. Chairman, this request has a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission and also has a recommendation of approval from the staff.
I want to rezone, it was an old store building, and it hadn't been used for commercial in over 25 years. So I just want to rezone it back to agriculture. The gas pumps, tanks, and everything have already been removed, and it's pretty much a storage for my wife now. So that's all it's used for.
Never too much of that. Okay, anyone else here representing Ms.
No.
Robinson? Okay. I'll ask, is anyone in opposition of the rezoning request? Any opposition of zoning requests? Seeing none, we'll look for a recommendation from the board.
On behalf of Commissioner Chambers, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Mr. Chairman, the next item we have is a conditional use permit request for a secondary detached dwelling at 275 Old Bowden Road. Applicant is Helen Jackson, owners are Kevin and Leanne Johnson. Mr. Chairman, this request has a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission.
Is the applicant here?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. My name's Kevin Johnson. What I'm asking is that my mother-in-law be allowed to put a modular home on part of the property that I own. She's getting older. She's sold her house just to downsize. I really believe one of the reasons was that due to her age, her bedroom was upstairs, and she's lived there after her husband passed for the last few years. And as I said, she's just wanting to downsize, but I believe it's the fact that the bedroom was upstairs, so she sold the home. She never would admit that to us, but I think that's the reason she wanted to do this. And one thing I'd like to mention, when I initially applied for this, is a conditional use permit. Since then, me and my wife have talked about this. My mother-in-law, she's going to purchase a new mobile home. She's already picked one out, put it there. She's going to add decks and all to it, and a carport, garage. But in her passing, which she may outlive me, and who knows when that would happen, then we got to thinking, this being a modular home, what are we going to do if we have to remove it after her passing? Now, I'm not going to sell it, of course, but I do have children, and I got to thinking, hey, talking with my wife, rather than selling this, trying to get rid of the mobile home and have it moved, you're not going to get anything for a used mobile home. And I would rather just that it be allowed, if I decide that one of my children may live in it, it wouldn't be anybody else living in it. I wouldn't want them on the property, but maybe one of my kids, and depending on which kid it was. No, I'm just kidding. But, so I just want to mention that maybe not have the conditional use permit, that it may want to keep it there.
Okay. You're the only one here tonight representing?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We'll ask at this time, there was no opposition. Is there any opposition to this request for zoning?
Thank you.
Seeing none, we'll look for a recommendation from the board.
I want to make a motion on behalf of Commissioners Chambers to approve. And if you'll open the floor to discussion, I'll try to answer gentleman's question.
I'll second, so we can talk.
We have a motion and a second. Now, any discussion?
Planning and zoning can correct me if I'm wrong, but just because it's conditional use, unless the board attaches some type of specific conditions on who can live there and how long the trailer can be there, it's essentially the same as it being zoned. I mean, it's just, right, so unless we were to say, no renting, or unless we were to say she's the only one that can live there, otherwise, you're free to do with it, and you're free to leave it there just as long as you want. Is that okay with you? Yeah, there's essentially other, it's just a
That was not
variance.
the intent of it.
Excuse me?
That was, yeah.
Right.
No, that was not the intent. What he's asking for, I support, but the intent for the conditional use was so that people couldn't bypass the codes and come in and then keep it, because if what you're saying is true, and if he decides to sell the house, then what we've essentially done is allowed two properties there, that you can have two rental pieces on there. That was not the intent of conditional use. Now, if you're saying that's what it is, I'm fine with that. But the intent was your original, and that is, in the event that your mom or someone gets sick, you move someone in, because we have to keep in mind, we're not adopting policies for individuals, we're adopting policies for the county. And so the policy should be good whether you live there or not. And so let's say hypothetically you decided that you want to move somewhere else, and someone came in behind you. But they may not want their kids there at all. You only don't want one. They may not want any of them. You're supposed to laugh like I laughed when you said you wanted one. But they may decide they want to rent it. And so the purpose of it was to protect it for that way. Now, if our attorney is saying you can do that, then it's a mute issue, and then I'm good with it. But I'm supporting a conditional use.
Right, well, the condition, I'm not gonna debate.
I'm with you, I'm good.
Let's just get clarification from them. I mean, essentially, you can do anything that you want with that double wide unless we put some specific
Let's
conditions.
get legal to tell us.
As I understand, make sure Ortega's clarifies this, the written application is to allow for a second attached dwelling on the same lot, which is not allowed in our zone without a conditional use permit.
That's correct.
That's what they're asking.
Right,
Now, I know he said in here he's gonna put another on there, but the variance, if I'm right, and correct me if I'm wrong, is for the second attached dwelling within the same lot.
right.
That's not cut.
It's not cutting out the land.
You can do whatever you want. It's a back door. I'm
There
good.
you go.
That was not the.
You're good.
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
you wanted. And in fact, if you did want to go to a rezoning, you'd have to reapply and do all this again.
To
So
go
you don't-
through.
You don't want to do that.
And if you decide you don't want the kids and you want to rent, you can do that too.
All right, so we're gonna have that motion from Kevin and a second by,
I second.
Me,
it was
I second.
Vicky. All right, we have a motion and a second. Now, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, the next item we have is conditional use and variance request for Kenneth Bortz and Joe Hall at 10 Lane Road, Carrollton. This request has a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission.
Excuse me. Good evening. My name's Ken Bortz. I live at 48 Lane Road, Carrollton. And what we're trying to do is Mr. Joe Hall lives at 10 on the corner there, 10 Lane Road. And he wants to keep the house and a full acre there, and we want to keep it zoned agriculture. Now it's grandfathered, basically. In case he wants to, raise some chickens, whatever he wants to do. I own the 48 and the 3662 Tyus Road, all that, so I'm going to take about 3/4 of an acre, whatever, from the 10 to add to my property.
Anyone here in opposition of this request? And seeing none, we'll look for a motion from the board.
On behalf of Commissioner Chambers, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? And seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Mr. Boyce, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, the last item we have is a conditional use and variance request for 96 Old Ward Road. This is for Wesley B. and Melissa Wilson. Mr. Chairman, this request has a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission.
How are y'all doing tonight? I'm Brandon Wilson. My first name is Wesley. I go by Brandon, so it's kind of hard for me to differentiate from Wesley, so I apologize for that. But my wife and I bought the property at 96 Old Ward Road this year, and we want to build our home there. The issues that we ran into as we're applying for the construction loan is the lender says, well, once you build the house, you're going to have flood insurance because part of the property is in the flood zone. And the lender said, well, there's a way that you can get out of that, and the way you do it is survey the flood zone out of your property. But before we closed on our construction loan, there was another issue with the floodplain. And that issue was once we dug the footings and had the footings poured and getting any type of structure going up, we're going to have to purchase flood insurance for the property, even though there's no structure there, just footings. So what we wanted to do is survey the floodplain out so we wouldn't have to purchase flood insurance. The house is measured at using FEMA's website is approximately 135 foot from what they say is the flood zone. I don't know if you're familiar with that piece of property, but the river, and then there's probably a floodplain on my side. It's about 50 to 75 feet wide, and then there's an embankment that's about 20 to 25 feet tall. That would, to me, make it virtually impossible to ever flood where you're going to put the house. So that's what we're really wanting to do, is just survey it out so we want to pay flood insurance on it.
Makes sense.
Anyone else, just you as representing?
Yes, sir. My
Yeah.
wife is at home. My
Sure.
son helping homework and all.
For this request, item 10.6, is there anyone in opposition of this request tonight? Anyone in opposition? Seeing none, we'll look for a request from the board.
On behalf of Commissioner Chambers, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. Just on, why is this a conditional use?
Yes, ma'am. The reason for the request, we titled it is a variance because we're asking, the request is to have about 1.8 acres of the property in the floodplain be separated from that, I think it's about 13, almost 14 acres there. The tract that would be left over would be less than the 4-acre lot requirement in the agricultural zoning district.
So what would be done with that,
With the remaining tract,
the property that is in the floodplain?
I don't know if you all have any plans
Can we put a stipulation
for
on
that.
that or something?
Ag.
And you are going to retain ownership of both, is that right?
Yes, we are. We intend to keep the property. This is our dream house we're building here. We don't intend to sell. If we do sell, we're going to move to the beach. That's the only thing we're going to do. But that piece of property there will be in our name, and when we sell, or if we sell, that the piece of property that we survey out, it will be understood that it will be sold with the home and the other property.
To answer Commissioner Anderson's question, you're going to have two parcels. One is going to be fee simple, which the bank would be able to hold for title to go with the loan, which would be less than the county's minimum 4-acre requirement for agriculture. That's why Artegas had him apply for the conditional use permit. But the remaining portion of the property that's in the floodplain, the county will not issue a building permit for it because it's within the floodplain. So that answers, I think, more of the second part of your question. The remaining portion of the tract, from a county standpoint, it's really a non-issue because we would not issue a permit for it.
So it could never be built on?
Correct.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Wesley Brandon Wilson. Thank you very much.
Make a motion to
But
adjourn.
before we make a motion, just one quick comment, because I have some, Mr. Chairman, we just had, from my perspective, some conversation on conditional use, which really is an effort to, in my opinion, make citizens of Carroll County jump through an unnecessary hoop. If we have it in our ordinance that you can split property and add a second dwelling, and it is there is no need, in my opinion, for them to come to the board for that. Because there's this perception in Carroll County that if you have 5 acres, then you can't split it and add a second dwelling on there. And that's not true. Our policy allows, or our ordinance allows for a second dwelling to be there without any question. And if that's the case, they shouldn't have to come to us as a formal bureaucracy to do that. That should be bestowed to everybody, especially Mr. Jackson's district. Having said that, I would like to see our our community development come up with something that takes it off of us and allows them to administratively make those decisions. And then they have the right to appeal it to us. Because right now, the perception is if you have someone that's sick, or the perception is if there's an emergency, and that's not what our ordinance says. It says that we allow a second dwelling on the property, and so I'm good with that. I just think we need to not selectively.
Yeah.
Huh?
I'm not saying now. No, I'm saying begin the process.
Within the process.
So that it won't be, so that anybody, if
Who's giving you task at hand.
yeah, if Marty has 5 acres and he wants his son to come and live with him, he doesn't come up with some excuse.
Yes, sir.
He can just go to the community development.
Yes, sir, and if I may, just for a moment, and please indulge me, the staff has done that previously, and it has been the collective will of the board to not do that.
But I'm changing the collective will of the board.
Commissioner
Just gave you the authority.
Commissioner North gets 1 vote.
Yeah. But it was also at one point in time, we used to require there to be a reason, because we were trying to maintain a certain development within the county. And there was something that ran with it, and you had to renew it.
Well, when I first came on with the county in May of 1999, the citizens were allowed to have 2 dwellings on 1 parcel with a minimum of 1 acre. 3 months later, this was already in process. The board at that time changed the regulation, thus the types of applications that the board has seen for the past 16 and 1/2 years. And that's certainly something that policy-wise, the board, if the board, sees fit to direct the staff to make some changes with that, we're certainly, willing to, work amongst ourselves and with the board and with the community to see what would be the best option. But over the years, we have had numerous attempts with trying to have our new zoning ordinance adopted. The date on it is October or December 2011, and it is literally gathering dust on my shelf. Over the past several years, the staff has made numerous requests to the Board of Commissioners in regards to having, among some of the items, that Commissioner North and a myriad of other items presented to the Commission in order to be able to try to get a more feasible and less cumbersome means for development applications and procedures for the citizenry. We have been unsuccessful in doing that. Now, if the Board of Commissioners would like to, pursue that in 2016, we're certainly more than willing and able to do that. But to be perfectly honest, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, with all respect, it's been very frustrating. I've been here for 16 and 1/2 years. When Mr. Cole and Ms. Goolsby were in the office, we had a lot of staff there to be able to do a lot of these things, and they're not in our department anymore. And I understand and appreciate that it is, the will of the board to do some changes, but with the reduced amount of staff and an increased level of items and documentation and workload altogether that's coming through the door, it's becoming increasingly difficult for the staff that's there now to be able to facilitate that along with the items and the phone calls and folks that come in through the door every day. So we are willing and able to do that, but we would like to be able to have the board's full consensus in order to move forward with those items.
Let me say this, and you're absolutely correct. We've talked about it over and over again. We're not going to solve this one tonight. We've all talked about it. This would be a good discussion for a retreat. It'll take hours and hours. I think some of us always have and always will take exception to what you're talking about that represent myself and Commissioner Chambers, that represent the majority of agricultural and rural Carroll County. We're not going to solve this tonight.
This is not a work session. My request was not to begin a debate. My request was to go back, look at it, and let's see how we can streamline it for our taxpayers and be consistent. My request stands. It will be unfair for you or for any of us to try to solve it without even going back and considering how can we streamline it for our constituency. And just a little nudge. What you're saying is very valid, and I receive it. And if I were you, when we come back, I bring both. And if I were you, when it comes up, we discuss it all. But to not receive it in the tone that is presented and go back and look at it devalues the concern. And that's not the intent. My point isn't to have a debate.
I'm not going to debate.
That's not it.
I don't want to debate, but I'm saying he makes a valid point that he's done this. What the point he's making is he's done it over and over again, puts all of this work into it, and it gets into the front of the board and it goes nowhere.
Now, I will be glad to share
If you want to request him to do a bunch of work,
what
not
he did,
not knowing that this board is going to pass it, then
Mr. Chairman,
put him through it.
I didn't come prepared to have this conversation tonight. I've had a conversation with Art, and I am aware what Art and the department has done on behalf of a couple of board members. We've had that. I just don't think tonight is the time for us to discuss a redoing based upon 3 members of the board making recommendations. I get it, and you should be passionate about it. I respect that. But if it didn't go anywhere, then the question should be, why is it that 2 commissioners weighed in heavily on an ordinance that is still sitting on his shelf dusty?
It did not. It was not 2. It was this entire board that said no.
I'm done.
Chairman, at this time, we'll look for, we got a motion to adjourn, look for a second. We have a motion and a second, and I know no discussion with that. All those in favor? Thank you.